Good evening and welcome to Northbeat. I'm Leanie Lambrink. A Fifth Estate investigation has found that genealogical records and historical research contradict Buffy Sainte-Marie's claims about her identity. For decades, the celebrated singer-songwriter has said she is a Cree woman born in Saskatchewan. But as Jeff Leo reports, some of her own family members are now casting doubt on that claim.
Buffy Sainte-Marie is considered one of North America's most famous Indigenous people. She started her career way back in the 1960s as a folk singer in New York City, playing alongside the likes of Bob Dylan, Leonard Cohen, Joni Mitchell, and her songs became anthems for both war protesters and also for advocates of Indigenous rights. Now, claims about her ancestry, they've shifted over the years from Algonquin and Mi'kmaq early on in her career, eventually claims that she was Cree. She's also said that she was born on the Piapot First Nation, which is just north of Regina in Saskatchewan, in the early 1940s. And then, her story goes, she was adopted as an infant by an American couple, Albert and Winifred Santa Maria, and they raised her in Massachusetts. And finally, her story says that in her early 20s, she was reunited with her Piapot relatives and adopted into the Piapot family.
Now, I spoke with her niece, Heidi Sainte-Marie, and she says that story is an elaborate fabrication. She says, in fact, Buffy Sainte-Marie is of Italian and English ancestry and was born in Stoneham, Massachusetts.
I mean, she's clearly born in the United States. She's clearly not Indigenous or Native American. She wasn't born in Canada.
Now, CBC's investigation actually uncovered Buffy Sainte-Marie's birth certificate, and it confirms that she was born February 20th, 1941, in Stoneham, Massachusetts. We've asked her for an interview about this, but she's declined our request.
In a letter, her lawyer suggested that this birth certificate may not, in fact, be real. The lawyer also says that at no point has Buffy misrepresented her ancestry or any details about herself. Jeff Leo, CBC News, Toronto.
The Fifth Estate's investigation, Making an Icon, is available for streaming on YouTube, CBC TV, and CBC Gem. A Northern Dene musician says she's been feeling a range of emotions about Buffy Sainte-Marie. Leela Gilday met Sainte-Marie for the first time in the 90s. She says it's disappointing to learn the fellow musician may not be Indigenous by birth, but Gilday says that does not mean Sainte-Marie is suddenly no longer part of her community.
When she came up as an Indigenous artist, there were no grants for Indigenous artists. This was not an advantage for her. In fact, she was blacklisted from the US radio industry because her songs were so political. And I would say that embracing that identity was actually a barrier for her to, you see her most popular song that she won a Grammy for, Love Lift Us Up Where We Belong, it's not an indigenous topical song. So, I mean, regardless, she's an incredible musician, and I don't think her career her career success was actually hindered by her Indigenous identity, I think. But I'm glad that she embraced, what she believed to be true. And clearly she is, kin of the Piapot family, and they've come forward very strongly claiming her and saying she is a part of our family, she is a part of our nation. And I can't argue with that.
People living in the Northwest Territories and Nunavut may have noticed their landlines aren't working today. Northwest Health says they're dealing with a network issue. That's why local and long-distance phone service in both territories has been down. The company says people might not be able to call 911 from a landline in the NWT either. They're being told to go to their local detachment in person if they can't get through. The city of Yellowknife says residents can also go to City Hall or the Fire Hall for emergency help. Northwest Health says technicians are investigating the problem and trying to restore service. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced a change to Canada's carbon tax yesterday. It means there won't be a carbon tax on home heating oil for 3 years. The move largely helps those in Atlantic Canada. As the CBC's Kate McKenna tells us, Trudeau is drawing criticism about it from two different sides.
Justin Trudeau is in total panic mode.
Pierre Poilievre is turning up the heat on the Trudeau Liberals.
What caused Justin Trudeau to freak out yesterday and hold a sudden press conference to announce that he was going to pause the carbon tax on home heating oil? The answer is that he was plummeting in the polls.
Amazing Atlantic MPs.
Justin Trudeau and his Atlantic team announced a 3-year pause on the cost of home heating oil, an extra rebate for rural Canadians, and incentives for heat pumps. It's a backtrack on the government's carbon tax, aimed at making life cheaper for people on the East Coast. Speaking to Chief Political Correspondent Rosemary Barton, Alberta's finance minister says that's just not fair.
It's time that our federal leadership admits that the retail carbon tax is an abysmal failure. I'm very, very happy for my Atlantic cousins, but I certainly think it's unfair.
He's not alone.
When will the NDP Liberal government admit that their carbon tax is punishing Albertans and axe the entire carbon tax?
But Canada's Environment Minister says the goal of this change is to give Atlantic Canadians time to get off oil by buying heat pumps.
Of course, as Environment Minister, my preference would be to not have to make those accommodations. But we live in a world where some people are challenged with affordability right now, and we have to be able to course correct on some of our measures.
Some environmental advocates say that plan might backfire because the government has sent a signal that the carbon tax won't be applied equally.
It undermines the credibility of Canada's carbon pricing.
The federal environment minister says this decision is pragmatic, not political. He also says there won't be any additional concessions for other provinces. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Ottawa.
It's unclear if or how the exemption is going to affect people in the north. In the NWT, the government passed its own version of the carbon tax this spring, and there is a tax on heating fuel in the territory. The NWT's finance department told CBC News it's trying to get clarification. The MLA for Nunakput says he's been pushing for carbon tax exemptions for years.
They're being reactive to stuff. They're not proactive. And as a government of Canada, they have to represent all of Canada, not just the Atlantic, not just the NWT, not Yukon, it's everybody.
CBC News also reached out to the NWT Premier's office for more information. The Premier's office said it would not respond, citing a media blackout during the election campaign. Meanwhile, in Nunavut, the territory's finance minister says he learned about the carbon tax change the same time as everyone else.
We will be taking time between now and the spring when it does come into force, the kind of impacts it will have in our territory. There's a lot of work behind the scenes when they make announcements like this. So at this point, we really do not know what kind, if any, impact it will have on us.
Kusugak says he plans to meet with the federal government to discuss it further. A Nunavut MLA is suggesting ways the government can address the rising cost of living. Adam Ariak Lightstone is the MLA for Iqaluit Maniraya. He wants the territory to increase the allowance for government employees who own their own homes. He also wants the territory to better promote a business electricity subsidy and is calling for changes to the Nunavut child benefit. He wants the benefit to be higher and wants more people to qualify for it.
We rank 8th on the list of all jurisdictions in Canada when it comes to the amount paid to low-income families who have children. The government of Nunavut and the Department of Finance offers $275 a year. Meanwhile, provinces, which with much lower cost of living, offer sums in the range of $1,000 to $2,000 a year.
Finance Minister Lorne Kusugak says his department is trying to put more money into the hands of homeowners who work for the territory. He also says his department could promote its programs better. The Northwest Territories general election is just under 3 weeks away. It promises to be a tight race in the riding of Tabacha, with 3 strong candidates vying for that seat. All 3 say Fort Smith is important to them. Carla Ulrich has that story.
Frida Martselos held the MLA seat for the last 4 years. She told CBC that housing and education is high on her list of priorities.
It is a major problem throughout the Northwest Territories, not only Fort Smith. I'm also about education. Don't have education, you don't have anything. And we have to instill that in the young people.
Jay McDonald is currently the town's deputy mayor. He said he wants to develop the local economy.
We very much rely on the territorial government and Aurora College as our main employers within the community. This community needs to grow and flourish, and in order for that to happen, we really need to look at the opportunities.
McDonald said that creating housing security will be a big part of that plan. Connie Benwell is relatively new to GNWT politics, but she has a strong background in advocacy and Indigenous government. She said healthcare is a big issue in the community.
Especially not having doctors here all the time. So they want a full-time doctor here, and there's no dentist. They don't like going to Hay River and Yellowknife in Edmonton to see a dentist, and sometimes it's an emergency.
She also said she wants medical travel to be looked at and improved. I also spoke to community members about what issues they think are important.
We still have a huge housing crisis. We have not enough resources in our Department of Health and Social Services, and as well our education. There's a lot of upset. I don't know if there'll ever be enough money, but we can't stop putting the effort into trying to address. They're so connected, and they need to be addressed.
I think that after what would be incredible 3 or 4 years, that's been really challenging, from a pandemic, forest fires, it seems like emergencies and disasters, and special circumstances that have been incredibly challenging on community members, businesses, hiring as a whole in NWT has been incredibly challenging. So I think that, like, getting us economically, I don't know, back on track or on some form of track is what's important to me.
Carla Ulrich, CBC News, Fort Smith.
A bill that would have changed some of Nunavut's electoral ridings, particularly in the Kavalik region, has been defeated. 11 MLAs voted against Bill 35, 8 voted in favor, and 1 abstained. The Nunavut Electoral Boundaries Commission had recommended the changes. The goal was to fix concerns about over and under representation in the territory. Sunny Ryak still doesn't know who its next mayor will be. The municipal election on Monday ended in a tie, and there was supposed to be a recount, but that's been delayed now until next Friday. Nunavut's chief electoral office says it's because of a canceled flight. A justice of the peace was going to fly to the community to do the recount. Ami H. Kipsigak and Philip Anugaratsiak received 57 votes each on Monday. If the recount leads to another tie, then the community will draw a name to decide its next mayor.
A lot happens overnight.
Hey, good morning, Heather.
Hey, good morning. How are you today? We're ready to go when you need to know. Good morning. I'm Heather Hiscox. We begin with breaking news, what we're learning from it.
Like you see from behind us here, how big the fire is.
Your connection goes back decades.
You're giving me the hard questions.
Yep. The heroes and the helpers.
That is what we're here for.
I found Canadians. I'm Heather Hiscox. Start your day with us on CBC Morning Live.
I am in the best place in the entire world right now.
Oh, I always play with fire.
This is an epic fail.
I'm obsessed with these.
I am utterly speechless.
Keeping secrets, are you? No, sir. Just like any man. On the run.
Whatever you're gonna do, you need to do it now.
Hang on, guys. I'm sure you'll get some action, promise? We were failed by history.
It's really important that we own our stories.
Every
week, the issues that matter to Canadians.
These are acts of desperation.
Connecting politics to people.
Some people have lost everything.
Join me for Rosemary Barton Live.
They might be covered in snow now, but communities in parts of the Northwest Territories built fire breaks this year. Hastily bulldozed strips of land designed to stop the threat of wildfires. You may be keen to put the fire season behind you and turn to thoughts of snowmobiling and cross-country skiing instead. But I wanted to know, what's the long-term plan for these multi-million-dollar safeguards around Yellowknife? What happens to them next year when the snow melts again? To find out, I spoke to Chris Greencorn. He's Yellowknife's Director of Public Works. He was also the guy coordinating the fire break building around Yellowknife this summer. Here's part of our conversation.
Well, you can kind of see the terrain that we were working with, right? So we wanted to punch right through to the lake, and this goes all the way up to Engle.
Right. So we're standing on a fire break right now. This one is at the end of Grace Lake Boulevard on Yellowknife's southern edge. And it's an example of one of about 10 fire breaks that are surrounding the city. Chris, can you tell me what the plan is for this break and the other fire breaks around the city in the future?
Sure. Well, right now we're in planning stages for what we envision on the final, I guess, resting piece or final envisioning of the Yellowknife fire break system to be. Obviously, we're planning and expanding on ideas such as recreational walking trails, skidoo trails, ATV trails, whatever that can be used for. We're lucky enough to have this piece of infrastructure now, and we want to maintain it to a level, or our attempt to maintain it to a level that can be usable for the community, not only for wildfire defense mechanisms, but also those recreational uses that I just spoke about.
So what are some of the things that the city is going to need to consider as it works on figuring out that long-term plan?
Sure, just what the city can afford under current budgets, what that might look like if there is increased budgets. Obviously, we have to bring these ideas back to City Council to get their blessing and get their approvals on things. We'll be looking at things on what's required for maintenance on those things in the future, how much it's going to be, is it done with current resources, would it be contracted resources, and the level of finishing that's required to do those activities. So all in all, we're not putting anything off the table. We're exploring all options, and obviously if you look around, there's still a lot of cleanup work to do, so we still have to take that into consideration, and that work will be continuing through the winter and through next spring.
Depending on what the plan is, what could maintenance end up looking like for a fire break like this?
Sure, I think maintenance will end up on what the final, I guess, activity and use would be of the fire breaks, other than a fire break, of course. So if it's just, if it's to say natural infrastructure and be a natural trail, hiking trail, then the maintenance requirements are obviously a little bit less. We'll be looking at keeping it probably free and clear of major tree vegetation, but maybe looking at drought-resistant, low-lying brush that still revegetates the area and keeps it natural, but also doesn't allow it to become overgrown again.
When is the city going to start having a more meaningful discussion about this?
I would say the talks are beginning now, but we're still reeling a little bit from the wildfire itself and 2023 as a whole. So I think those conversations will continue in the winter, and engaging with City Council and how they want to approach it, and probably will come up during budget deliberations, which are also pushed back until February. So 2023 has thrown us a few curveballs and put us behind schedule a bit, but those conversations are starting now, and we're doing envisioning exercises and what that's going to look like and how to maintain this infrastructure now that we have it and that a lot of communities wish they had. So yeah, we're constantly talking about those things, but we're trying to to get all our ducks in a row before we come forward with any concrete ideas, I suppose, for the public to consume.
And then, of course, depending on water levels and just the conditions that we see next summer, we might still need this to act as a fire break, right?
For sure. It's a little early to speak to that, but we have seen some early predictions about the winter, the snow cover, what the spring is going to look like, and I believe experts are, you can fact check me on this, but I believe experts are calling for another dry spring, a quick melt, more dry conditions. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we don't have to use these in the same manner that they were built for, but yeah, we'll see how this spring melt goes and the early days of next spring, summer.
Okay, Chris, thank you for talking to us about this.
Anytime.
Whitehorse residents have been noticing extremely low water levels on the Yukon River. After weeks of rain, the change was especially striking. In some places, it's actually possible to see the river bottom. But Yukon Energy's Director of Risk and Compliance says this happens every year. While water levels may be low today, Travis Ritchie says the view is deceptive. That's the river's water is actually higher than ever.
Well, this time of year where we undertake a number of seasonal maintenance activities to get the facility ready for winter, and some of those activities require us to shut down the spillways. The flows in the river right now are about double what the average would be, so they're double what we would normally expect to see them at this time of year. And
workers will be removing the fish screens that help direct fish to the fish ladder before they freeze in place. The river will gradually return to its original water level this evening. Nunavut's research vessel, the RV Nuliayuk, finished its tour of the Qikiqtaaluk region. The ship was in Pond Inlet, Qikiqtarjuaq, and Pungnurtu in August and September. It was helping researchers survey aquatic species and map the ocean floor. The goal was to assess the possibility of developing marine fisheries in the area. However, this year's trip took a lot longer because of icebergs.
We left here we went to Pang from here, Pangnurtu. And then we left that to go to Pond Inlet, but because of the ice, we had to go to Greenland to get around the ice to come to Pond Inlet. So it was quite a journey. It was a long trip. I think it was 10 days from Pang to Pond Inlet, when it's only probably 3 or 4 days. So it was quite amazing, and big pieces of ice. Some of that ice was maybe a kilometer long, and all packed together. You're not pushing it, so you have to get around it.
The crew spoke to residents in some of the communities. They also brought students on board to learn about their work. The ship has been in service since 2011. An internationally celebrated artist and architect is designing major upgrades for a museum in Calgary. Those upgrades include a rooftop terrace that'll take you all the way to the prairies. Anis Haidari explains how.
It doesn't look like much yet.
A pavilion is coming up right over there.
But this Calgary rooftop is set to transform with a famous American designer at the helm. Maya Lin designed the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C. Now she's taking on her first Canadian project, designing a new terrace at the Glenbow Museum. One of her goals, to represent the prairies in architecture.
What I'm doing on the rooftop is welcoming you to the sky and the prairie as well. So hopefully you'll be able to connect to kind of the larger idea of where is Calgary situated in.
Of course, visiting the site during winter also represents the prairies.
Coming out here in the middle of winter, or it's actually the beginning of winter, helps really substantiate my goal to make something that is used physically in the warmer months, but is equally something that when you're inside the pavilion looking out or from the cafe, that you get to enjoy it as well.
This project is part of a multi-million-dollar investment. Lynn's work will help repurpose a 50-year-old building. Museum leaders say that was how they drew the designer in.
We're taking old commercial and civic architecture and saying, let's make this new again, but without knocking it down. Let's find the value in that old building and refresh it so that it's a place that we want to spend time today. And those are the values that attracted her to Calgary.
And I think you want to lead by example. So I think that the Glenbow committed to recycling, basically, their existing museum.
Admission will be free to both the museum and the rooftop, with both outdoor and indoor spaces. The projects should be done by 2026. Anis Haidari, CBC News, Calgary.
Copenhagen's famed Tivoli Gardens has been transformed into an impressive Halloween display. Visitors are greeted by eerie orange lighting as they enter the 175-year-old park. Spooky decorations include 20,000 cackling pumpkins, and if that's not enough, there are witches, ghosts, and shadows of bats projected onto the park's roller coaster. The scary house is a big hit among the young and old. It took more than 20 gardeners and workers to put the display together. That really puts my own Halloween decor to shame. That's Northbeat for tonight. For news anytime, head to cbc.ca/north. Thank you for watching. I'm Leanie Lambrink. Have a great weekend.
Driving impaired destroys lives. A message from Mad Canada.
Keeping secrets, are you? No, sir. Just like any man. Starting new. On the run.
Whatever you're gonna do, you need to do it now.
Hang on, guys. I'm sure you'll get some action. Promise?
Putting on that apron brings me to tears.
Hey! This is an epic fail.
Where are the pecans? I don't see the pecans. The stones. The Beatles.
I did a test.
What?
We were failed by history. Look where we are, under that legacy.
It's really important that we own our stories.
Just remain calm. Grab the head.
You grab the head. Have you ever dealt with something like this before?
No.
It's on me now. Animal Control. Watch all episodes now.
It was awesome. It was great. I loved it.
Yeah, good show.
With the comedy in, with the history.
He was really funny.
Nailed it. It was great.
Still Standing. Watch free on CBC Gem.
I was homeschooled as a child.
You can only be as smart as your mom. That's it.
Gross.
Okay, cool.
I love it.
We have an incredible show lined up for you tonight.
Wow!